China's mounting garbage problem has been partly blamed on its appetite for takeout. How can meal delivery services reduce plastic waste? Big question mark. Welcome back. You're watching World Insight with Tianwei, coming to you live Monday to Friday on CGTN. The innovation of online to offline have spurred the growth of food delivery services around the world, especially here in China, with the convenience and profit disputes of its damage to the environment has also become very evident. White pollution made waves in social media as takeaway food permeated our daily lives. The waste is considerable. According to environmental statistics, China's annual plastic output exceeded 300 tons in addition to plastic imports, and only 14% of plastic packaging can decompose properly. No matter what proportion of takeaway can shoulder the blame, the accumulation of garbage is a big problem that demands a prompt solution as soon as possible. So how can China reduce its appetite for takeout and save the environment? We hope the two of them, our panelists, will be able to help us to find some solutions. Let's meet them and talk to them. We have Sir David King, former UK government's chief scientific advisor. He's also the UK Foreign Secretary's special representative for climate change. Good to have you, Sir David.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Professor Qi Ye from the School of Public Policy and Management from Tsinghua University. Professor Qi, long time no see. Good to have you back.
Good to be with you.
Well, what can we say, Professor Qi? I want to begin with you because you are taking the takeout. You're also seeing the people around you, they're doing the same thing. But this is a big problem.
It's a big problem. I'm guilty of doing these takeouts, but I feel like I have to do it every day with a busy schedule, yes, with the lunch meetings, that kind of thing.
Same here.
Very convenient, very convenient, and very inexpensive. It's decent food, but it's not that tasty. I don't really like it. I have to say. At the same time, create a lot of waste. As a consumer, we're not paying for the waste and the waste treatment. We're only paid for the food itself. So this is the problem we're facing. So for the environmental impacts, it's a very important part, but it's not being paid by the consumer.
We have already got some law cases going on right now. Some of the takeout platforms online have been sued by environmental groups for the enormous amount of plastic waste that they created. But of course, this is not just one side road. It's rather going both sides because the consumers also need it. Sir David, what can we do?
Well, I think there's a major problem of plastic wastage in the seas of the world. There's a giant island you probably know about that's been formed purely plastic waste, and this is only going to get worse. Basically, as you said, the plastic is not soluble, and once this flows into rivers, it flows into the sea, and we end up with major contamination of the ocean. A very high proportion of fish caught in the sea have plastic particles in their stomach. And of course, this whole thing impacts on the food chain, on the ability of the fish to survive. So it's a very big environmental issue, and it's very important.
It is a big environmental issue. If you just take a look at some of the numbers we have got, the Chinese takeaway app, says at least 100 million orders take off weekly in China. 400 million. This produces 400 million disposal boxes, the least. 400 million plastic bags, 400 million sets of cutleries. And this has also exceeded the US, which has 40 million orders every week. Even when adjusted for population, the Chinese will still order 28 takeouts per 100 person, while Americans will order 13 takeouts per 100 people. Of course, there are differences between these two countries and cultures. Here in China, takeout extremely inexpensive.
That's right.
And labor inexpensive. You got a delivery man going all the way to your door and knock on it and say, here is your lunch and here is your dinner. Nobody wants to miss that kind of convenience. Very low cost too. And yet, how much are we thinking about when it comes to the price of delivery and the price of this lunch and dinner that we have discounted already, the price that we have to pay to the overall environment, Professor Qi?
We are at this stage. On the one hand, as the society get wealthier, and people really like to take advantage of this convenience and low cost. And at the same time, we're in this process of the new economy, this internet plus economy, and that brought in this convenience and is a very rapid developing stage.
And we used to be very proud of that, right? We used to say, wow, China is the only place that this could happen.
These companies, they're literally burning the money, and they're using the money from the investors. Yeah. Investors are just anticipating getting the bigger market share in the future and to dominate the market. We're in that particular stage. So that stage just made it, this problem looks much worse than
Professor Qi, as we discussed earlier, this is not just about takeout. It's also about, the so-called shared economies, for example, about bicycles. You see millions of them now on the streets, and they're being put out there, sometimes blocking the roads, blocking the traffic, and people are seeing the side effect of the great prospect of the shared economy. So is it about the shared economy itself? Is it about the convenience life itself, or actually it's about the management of it?
No, I don't think it's about the idea of a share economy. I think share economy is a great idea. It's the direction to go. I said it just at this particular stage of development, and food delivery is not share economy, but it's internet-based. Right, it's just going in that particular stage, and we need regulation. We need regulation on the commerce. We need regulate. We need to make sure the consumers actually internalize the cost.
Sir David, China with its huge population and a very big appetite for consumption these days is going to turn many things into paramount effects. It's, for the good side, there's very prospering of the society and of the business. And it's linking everybody so closely together. But on the flip side of it, there are certain side effects that has not been earlier anticipated, and yet we are facing it right now.
China is going through a period of super consumerism.
Is that the phrase you just invented?
Yes.
Super consumerism. All right then.
By this I mean way beyond what is necessary for a good life. Particularly with young people, displaying newly found wealth and ability to buy everything. What is the average lifetime of a mobile phone in somebody's pocket? They see the next one and they want to buy that one. It's part of the consumer drive to increase the level of the economy. And so we are encouraged by advertising to consume more. Absolutely. But just a very short comment about the United States against China in terms of takeout. Go back 50 years and I bet you'll find the United States as close to where China is now. Right? So it is a stage of development where people are finding, wow, we've got convenience food, don't have to cook. Now let me tell you, for 50 years I've cooked at home, my wife has cooked at home. We wouldn't think of buying in because actually it doesn't take much more time. I mean, the reality is, if you've done your shopping, it's a pretty quick thing to do. So I just feel what we're actually talking about has become a global problem simply because the size of the global middle class has expanded so very rapidly this century. So when we look at the state of the oceans, that is only one aspect of what consumerism is driving through. Climate change is driven by our use of energy, the fact that it's still fossil fuels, and we waste energy. We consume energy at a tremendous rate. I'm going to take you up on what you said about cars and bicycles. The bicycles get in the way of the cars, or do the cars get in the way of the bicycles? In other words, the bikes aren't using fossil fuels, they're not causing pollution of the atmosphere.
And there is a waste of the steel, though.
And there's the waste of the steel in the cars.
And the steel has been consuming a lot of energy in order to be produced. So there is a chain over there that we are talking about if the bikes are not being used properly or sufficiently. That is what we are talking about here. You can walk around the city of Beijing and some of the others to see the paramount amount of bicycles these days.
But what I find disappointing is that in every city of the world I visited, in the Foreign Office I visited many cities, I've got caught up in congested. People sit in their cars. What we need is much better mass transit in our cities. What we need is government's regulation to drive this process through.
Here is the thing, Sir David, you just rightly put your fingers on, which is how China is going to take that great leap forward, not just in GDP growth rate, but rather in the mindset for a sustainable economy, be able to not to hit the same wall that the United States, like Sir David said, 50 years ago hit, like the UK did, maybe 100 years ago hit, and some of the European countries do too. So can that be done? Can that be done with the so-called, Professor Qi, China speed, which is amazing speed?
I think we're making progress. People begin to realize these problems.
Are you expressing it in a diplomatic way?
Well, I'm not a diplomat. This is a diplomat. But I tell you, that I'm agreeing with you. I think to really change the mindset, that is really the key. This, go back to 10 years ago, right? When the Communist Party had this 17th Congress, they really made this idea of ecological civilization. I think
and
I think
then
it
they become
resonates
sustainable
now.
development.
Exactly. I think we really need to change the mindset. But again, I think we are in this process with just getting wealthier, and we're just so
enjoy the services.
Overexcited.
Hyper-excited.
Exactly. I think this stage is limited, and we'll get over it. And in the end, we need a better policy, better regulation, and a better mindset. We really need to change that. Right?
The Chinese Communist Party constitution change in 2012 was dramatic. It includes the idea of eco-civilization, explained as managing improvement in human well alongside managing the ecosystems that deliver it. We're not doing that in any country. I admire the fact that is the Chinese aspiration, but you've got a long way to go.
One of the things is how to plan ahead, how to incorporate the lessons from the others, and make sure it come out with a primarily great system when it comes to management. And therefore, we don't have to, before we see all of these problems, be able to make a final decision for change. So, Professor Qi, how hard China is working on that? I mean, China has already committed to the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations.
That's true.
China is a signatory, big one, to the climate change deals, the Paris Accord. Now is China to show its colors. So will China be able to do that? I guess that's one of the big tests for China in front of the international community.
I think that's
also his own people.
Exactly. That's a very big challenge. The kind of phenomenon we're talking about right now is really driven by the commerce, by the business right now. And these internet companies, they are taking advantage. They are making a whole lot of profit. They are not paying the fair share of the cost. This costs the environmental cost.
You sound like an environmentalist, which you are.
Which I am. What I'm saying, I think that the government now need to catch up, and we need to make sure everybody who benefits from this development of a new economy will pay their fair share of the cost. Consumers also, they need to pay a fair share of the cost. after all, there is no such a thing as a free lunch, right? Somebody has to pay it, and if they don't pay it, then everyone else, the citizens, will have to.
It is
and
the environmental cost that we're talking about.
Exactly.
And we are having very limited time for today's discussion, but I'm sure our discussion about all of these related to the latest development will continue from today on. Thank you so much, Sir David King, Professor Qi Ye, both of you, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Right.
And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Insight CGTN in your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on World Insight team, thanks for watching, and tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Good night.